You're listening to the Live Fit podcast with Glenn Johnson. Here, we'll talk about all things related to good health, fitness, food, fat loss, and the mind-body connection.
Yes. Thanks for listening. This is the Live Fit podcast, episode 37. In last week's episode, I talked about fear of failure and success. Today, you're going to hear 5 tips to help you squash fear, push it aside, and achieve your goals. But first, I'd like to say that where I live, summer is rapidly fading away and fall is coming. I don't know if you realize it or not, but this is the time of year when most people begin putting on excess body weight. They go to parties, they hibernate, they slow down, and they eat comfort foods. But now is your chance to stop this trend before it's too late. Get ahead of it and be in the best shape of your life at Christmas time. And you won't need a New Year's resolution. My newsletter subscribers hear of my special deals and discounts all the time, but because I would really love to see you not gain weight this fall, I'm going to offer you, my dedicated podcast listeners, a 25% discount on my programs. If you use the coupon code PODCAST during checkout at livefitpodcast.com, you will save 25%. Onward and upward. Let's knock out fear. Fear. We all have it in some way with something. Some people fear insects and spiders and snakes. Others fear things like public speaking. But if you read or listened to part 1 of fear, you would know that some people also fear failing, which seems pretty easy to understand, while others fear success, which may not be as easy to understand, but part 1 explains it. Fear of success is more common than you think, though. In this podcast, I will show you how to fight back against fear and win with 5 simple techniques. Fear has great power. It can give us strength and energy, or it can cripple and paralyze us. Controlling your fear gives you the power. When you control the hold that fear has over you, you use its power for good, and then you win. Next, I'm going to give you the 5 tools that will help you fight back against fear. Number 1, write down your fears. Write down all the fears you can think of relating to a particular goal. Write down little fears as well as big fears. Even the little ones that don't seem like a big deal or an off chance, go ahead and write it down. The big ones, even the exaggerated worst case scenario fears, go ahead and write it down. Here's an example. Let's say a guy named Bill has a goal of losing weight. However, he never quite achieves his goal because whenever he gets close, he starts to feel nervous that he's going to reach his goal, he's going to be successful, and then he is going to look so good, so gorgeous, so hot that he's going to be conceited and cocky and nobody's going to like him anymore because he's such a jerk. Well, the solution to this, and the solution to any irrational assumption, is a realistic scenario. Is the above fear realistic? Yeah, maybe, but not very likely. Perhaps if there were no checks or balances in place, then yeah, it could happen. It also depends on his personality type. Chances are he's not going to go crazy with his confidence. The reality is that people do not lose weight quickly. There will be gradual changes, and friends and family will adapt as his weight changes, as his personality might change, as he becomes a little more confident and comfortable. And also, if he steps out of line and gets a little too cocky or over his head, chances are his friends and or family will bring him back down to earth. But on the other hand, if anybody changes the way they feel about Bill because he's improving his health, it's not Bill's fault or his responsibility how his friends and family feel about themselves, because that's really what it is. They're showing how they feel about themselves. They don't want him to improve because then it leaves them behind. If they want to lose weight, they should ask Bill for help, not berate his success. Also, Bill will probably not become conceited because his friends and family will keep him in place. It's important to keep in mind the crabs in a bucket behavior. If you did not listen to episode 30, this is about crabs like to stay in a bucket. When one tries to climb out, the others will pull him back in. What this means to Bill is if he tries to improve, his friends will do what they can to sabotage him and bring him back down because they don't want to be left alone, because then they will feel bad about themselves while Bill is enjoying his new life and his new friends and his new body. So the crabs in the bucket is a very real scenario, but it's going to take a lot of strength and willpower and resources for Bill to break free of that. It can be done. That is a different topic on its own. Number 2, knowledge is power. A fear I hear frequently from women is that they don't want to do weight training because they're afraid they will get big and bulky and look like a man. Now I ask you, is that really very realistic? No, not really. Genetics plays a major role in the size that muscles can become if you work them out really, really hard. If you don't, they won't. But so does sex, and women do not have as much testosterone as men do. So they have to work so much harder just to show any muscle gain, muscle mass, or definition. There are other ways, of course, but that's not what we're talking about. And if you just want good health and fitness, a male or female is not going to get bulky or huge muscles. It all depends on how you exercise. So the reality is, knowing the reality of what it would take to achieve your worst case scenario or your worst fear can often dispel that fear altogether. So that's why it's important to write down everything, even the most ludicrous, outlandish worst case scenario, because then you can bring reality into the picture and knock it back down. Number 3, visualization. Now, this is something that I discovered completely by accident. In college, I was taking a river kayaking class, and they put us in a swimming pool for 2 or 3 nights during this class, and they were trying to teach us how to do the Eskimo roll. That's where you're in the kayak and you flip upside down in the water. You're hanging there, cold, dark, and all this, and you're supposed to do this little flip with the hip and a twist with the shoulders and bend, and voila, you're sitting upright on top of the water in the kayak. Well, I was not successful at this. I could not do it. 3 nights straight, I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and then we were set to go out to the river, and I'm laying in bed just kicking myself. I could not understand why I couldn't do it. I'm pretty good at physical things, but I could not do this. And I'm laying there and I'm picturing in my head what I was doing. And this little film strip I had going on ended right at the same place that I failed every time. I got about halfway in this move and failed. So I, for some reason, decided, well, what would it feel like? What would it look like if I were to complete it? And so in my imagination, I went through the entire movement because I knew how to do it. It wasn't knowledge I was missing. It was just the coordination of all the muscles in the right order. So I laid there, half asleep, but still awake enough to consciously think. And I envisioned myself doing the entire Eskimo roll, and I used all 5 senses. Once again, I don't know what inspired me to do this, but I did it, and it was awesome. The result was amazing. It pretty much changed my life, at least one portion of it, because in my head, I did the move, I flipped up, and I was upright in the kayak, and it felt amazing. I used like I said, I used all 5 senses, and I could feel the water, and then I could feel the water off me. I could feel the water in my nose. I could feel the cold and the air and the pressure and the disorientation. And you know what? The next morning, we went out there in a real river, and everybody was looking to me to do my thing because they all couldn't kayak until I did the Eskimo roll successfully or quit and went back to the shore. It was my turn, and I flipped upside down. I laid there for a second or two, and then whoop, right back up, just like I had done it 100 times. And frankly, it felt like I had, because I did it honestly about a dozen times in my head the night before. And when I did it the next day in the water, it did not feel like the first time. It felt like I'd done it a dozen times before. This was a really eye-opening revelation to me because what it meant was that the mind is really very powerful. You can make it do things that couldn't be done in real life, and you can also convince your body and the other part of your mind that you can do things you didn't think you could. Number 4, be your own hero. My 7-year-old son often says superheroes are afraid of nothing. I tell him that they are, but they just don't show it. They don't let it stop them. They are brave in the face of fear. This is what it means to be brave. So we can use this same courage when we're afraid. If you want something badly enough, you will do whatever it takes to get it. Think about it. Write it out. Plan your strategy, rationalize your fears, and educate yourself on them. Then visualize your solutions, and finally, just go out and do it. Get out there and try, because if you don't, you will always wonder, what if? What could have been? Why didn't I try harder? Personally, I'd rather live with the satisfaction of knowing that I tried and did my best and failed than to have never have tried at all and not know and just wonder what could have been. But you know what? Most of the time when I give it a full effort, I don't fail. And that's the thing, you have to commit. You don't try it, you do it. Number 5. In part 1 of Fear, What Are You Afraid Of?, I suggested that you make a pro and con list. This list is intended to show your fears as they really are and compare them with other possibilities. It is also a good way to put things in perspective and to allow you to be more rational about what's stopping you. In the first part, I talked about the fear of failure and or the fear of success. This is a tricky situation to deal with because we don't always know what is stopping us, and it might not be obvious that you are afraid of success. We might think that we're working our hardest at losing weight and then wonder why we never quite reach our goals. There are many different scenarios for this possibility, such as getting comfortable and then reducing your effort, getting caught up in work or in a project, going on vacation and not resuming your good healthy habits when you get home, or losing sight of the prize because it's such a slow process. Whatever you see as your roadblock to your progress might not be the only thing. You might, in fact, be allowing these blocks to steer you astray. Why? Because it's easier? Because it saves your ego? Because you can say that you tried, but it just didn't work out. Yet, you know you didn't really give it your all, so underneath, you know it might have been able to work if you tried harder. So, then you get out and you try again. These are just a few examples of some common hurdles or reasons why people do not reach their fitness goals. What are yours? Do you have any different ones? You can use this pro-con list for anything, but it's particularly good at finding the truth about what's blocking your progress. If you haven't read part 1, I suggest you do so because that'll help you form this list. Once your list is complete, step back from it emotionally and think about what you see. Look at it as a stranger might. What questions would you ask? Are there any themes? Is this really what you meant to say, or is there more? Dig deeper. When you see these fears or reasons on paper, they tend to lose power. When we keep things in our mind, they can be accompanied by feelings of emotions and memories. When we write them down, there's usually less baggage with them, and you can take a rational look and make a rational decision. Are these barriers really that difficult, or is there something you can do to get ahead of them? Predicting your barriers to success will allow you to plan for them, and you will know exactly what to do when they do appear. Fear is a sensation and an emotion that can overpower, hinder, and control, but it can also be used to your advantage. Let it fire you up. Let it help you plan and conquer your goals. You have the strength. You just need to allow it to come out. Use your fears as your power. No matter what it is, you can be in control. Take charge. Now, get out there and do what you need to do to make yourself happy, proud, and healthy. Take the attitude of Richard Branson. Screw it. Just do it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Live Fit podcast. Please keep those reviews coming in iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can subscribe, read show notes, articles, resources, and learn more about weight management programs at livefitpodcast.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and always remember to live fit.